So I spent the last 4 months shooting exclusively with one and only one camera, the Hasselblad 907X 100C. This camera isn't fast, it's not packed with every feature, but that's kind of why I like it. Today, I'm gonna break down everything I like and don't like about this camera and show you a ton of photos and give you guys my 4 months experience shooting this camera. I've shot just about everything on this camera in the span of 4 months, from portraits to landscapes. I've taken on a bunch of trips where I brought my Sony but didn't even take it out of my bag. And I think it's time that I share my thoughts and opinions shooting with this camera. I'll say this, it's very easy to recommend a camera you've only used a few times, especially for the kinds of projects where you know it'll shine, but the 907X is unlike anything else I've used. It's not a perfect camera for everything, and that's why I felt the only way to give you an honest, real-world review was to shoot exclusively with it, even in situations where I didn't feel like it was the right tool for the job. Now, quick disclaimer, this video is not sponsored. Hasselblad did send this to me for some content over on Instagram, but that doesn't change my opinion on this camera. It has its pros and cons, and we're going to talk about them in this video. Before we dive into the video though, I'm just gonna quickly run through some specs, even though that's not what this video is about. We'll do it quickly for those who do care. The Hasselblad 907X 100C has a 100 megapixel medium format sensor. That medium format sensor is capable of capturing much more detail and bit depth, meaning you can shoot 16-bit RAW uncompressed and get 15 stops of dynamic range. It doesn't have a mechanical shutter. Hasselblad uses a leaf shutter, which are in their lenses. It has phase detect autofocus with face detection, 1 terabyte of internal storage, the ability to connect to its app to transfer and edit raw photos, and it comes in at 620 grams. Shooting on the 907X for the last 4 months has been a blast. There's a lot of things I like about this camera, like its form factor. From the way you hold this camera to the way that you shoot with this camera, it's much different than other cameras you're probably used to. This is your shutter button. Around that you have your aperture dial, and if you press in this button and then spin the dial, that changes your shutter speed. My one gripe about these controls is that you can't change this dial here that changes your aperture. You can customize the control ring on the lens itself, but the only setting left to adjust is your ISO. And so it's a little bit weird that if you wanted to control your ISO using a dial, you can use a control dial on your lens, and it's the only thing you can really map it to unless you just use a touchscreen. And so it's just a little bit weird that I kind of wish this was set for my aperture. It would make a lot more sense. And then the dial was set for my ISO. Now it does have a tilting screen that locks at 45 degrees and another time at 90 degrees, which is nice for that top-down view. The camera doesn't have a viewfinder, and although you could buy a viewfinder attachment for it, I actually found that the screen is bright enough to see even on bright sunny days. I don't find the form factor awkward to use, and in a time where every camera feels the same, the experience shooting with this camera and it being a different form factor is actually what made me choose this camera over the X2D. Something about the look and feel of this camera inspires me to get out there and shoot a lot more. I don't know what it is. Again, I think it's because it is different than any other camera. The menu system on this camera is also very simple to use. All your settings are right in front of you. You don't have a million different pages, and the touchscreen is surprisingly smooth, like similar to your iPhone. And you can use the screen to basically control everything you wanted to. Now, I've never shot with a Hasselblad before, but I have with other medium format cameras. One thing I will say is the quality of photos captured with this camera is unlike photos you get with any other camera. The quality is exceptional. That 100 megapixel medium format sensor is sharp. The Hasselblad lenses are sharp. It has 16-bit color. You're not only getting super high quality photos that you can reframe later in post, which is another perk to shooting 100 megapixels, but you're getting much more accurate colors with smoother transitions, more tonality, and more dynamic range because of that 16-bit. Now, that's also partially because of Hasselblad's natural color solution, which again is something Hasselblad does a great job at. I remember before shooting with one, watching other people talk about the Hasselblad look. I never really understood why they made a big deal about it until now having my hands on one. So in terms of image quality and colors, I have to give it to Hasselblad. I've tested out a lot of cameras and I don't think I've ever been blown away by a camera's image quality until this. I also like that the photos straight out of camera are much more square aspect ratio than full frame. It just gives you a lot more flexibility to crop a landscape for vertical or vice versa. So that's all good. When it comes to autofocus, this is where things get a little weird. The autofocus is good in this camera. It has phase detect autofocus, and I've never had any issues with it. In that 4 months, there were only maybe 4 or 5 times where it was really dark outside, and the 907X focused, but was hunting to focus initially. During the day, the autofocus is great. At night, in very, very dark situations, it's no longer as snappy. What's strange is, while it has face detection, it doesn't offer continuous autofocus. This photo I took in Italy took me about 10 times to nail focus, and that's because when shooting in burst without continuous autofocus and you're trying to track a subject, the autofocus is gonna lock on where you started that burst. It's not like continuous autofocus where it continues to follow with your subject. So it kind of forces you to work somewhat slower. Now, this is gonna sound crazy, but that is actually one of the problems that I don't mind. I've said it before, but I think we're at a point where taking photos has just gotten way too easy. I know that I can grab my Sony and just fire blindly, and I know I'd nail focus and probably get a good shot every time. There's no effort needed to take a good photo anymore, and I think that's why a lot of us are getting back into film photography. So the fact that this camera puts me to work if I want to take a better photo, like the shot of Stella crossing the street, it's almost more rewarding when you do nail the shot. Is this something you want for fast-paced professional work? Probably not, but for anything else, it's actually quite nice. Now, this also goes for its burst speed. With that medium format sensor and those large files, you're capped at 3.3 frames per second when shooting 14-bit RAW. Again, it's a slower camera, but at the end of the day, you don't want to be shooting a burst with this camera anyway, given that the file sizes are absolutely massive, with one raw photo coming in at roughly 250 megabytes. Now, that can eat up a lot of storage and it might scare you, but I recently found out that you can actually compress these files into lossless 16-bit raw DNG files using the Hasselblad Focus app, and it reduces the file size quite a bit, which is nice, almost in half. Speaking of storage, the 1 terabyte SSD inside this camera is truly a game changer. Truly something that we need in every camera. I've always been the type of person that will leave home heading to a shoot and question if I forgot my card. And it's just really nice that I don't ever need to worry about that with this camera. I did about 12 days in Italy using only the internal SSD without having to offload. So I love that they gave us enough space. 1 terabyte is the perfect amount, so you don't have to worry about running out of storage. It has great battery life. You can easily go a day or two without having to swap batteries, especially if you're shutting on and off between shots. You can charge over USB-C. You can also file transfer off the SSD using USB-C. The Hasselblad app for your phone is also really good. It's probably the best camera app of all manufacturer apps. It just connects to your camera and you can transfer RAWs to your phone so incredibly fast. When it comes to shooting in low light, because it doesn't have IBIS like the X2D does, I found even shooting at those higher ISOs like 800 and ISO 6400, sure, you may get some noise, which is expected with 100 megapixels on this medium format sensor, but the Hasselblad app actually does a great job at denoising if I needed to, if I was shooting at those higher 6400 ISOs. You could absolutely shoot handheld at night if you needed to with this camera. The Hasselblad lenses are extremely sharp and complement that 100 megapixel sensor really well, allowing for some really pleasing but sharp, high quality photos. And one thing about these Hasselblad prime lenses is that they actually step down to f2.5, which you don't really see in a lot of medium format lenses. The typical is like f4. The lens I've been using with the 907X is the 55mm XCD, which is roughly a 43mm focal length on full frame. And I think if you were to only get one prime lens, I'd probably suggest this one. I've shot basically all my photos on this lens. It's wide enough where you can still get a lot of things in your shot, but you can also get in for some closer portraits with no distortion. I feel like it's just a great all-around lens. And although I've tried the 25mm, the 55 is the only lens I actually have for it, and I don't regret my decision. Now, like I mentioned before, Hasselblad lenses do have a leaf shutter in them, which essentially means you can sync a flash at any shutter speed. They're also much quieter and don't really produce any camera shake, so you're a lot more comfortable shooting at those slower shutter speeds handheld. Now, that being said, you can still use other lenses on this camera, even ones without a leaf shutter system. You're going to be stuck manually focusing, and you do need to turn on the electronic shutter.
Exposure, electronic shutter.
But we tested a few photos with this LightPock lens, and the results turned out great. With that being said, is this a camera for you? I'll say if you shoot weddings, events, sports, or anything fast-paced, skip this camera. But if you're a landscape, portrait, or fine art photographer who wants to slow down and shoot deliberately, this might be your dream camera. I know it's definitely mine. And if you're someone who shoots on an older Hasselblad 500C with older lenses, the ability to adapt this camera's digital back onto an old, Hasselblad 500C film body is innovation at its finest. And great if you want that.
Sounds so good. That shutter sounds so good, and look at that.
Dude, it's pure magic.
Feeling of shooting film with the top-down viewfinder and old vintage lenses, but you're shooting 100 megapixels without having to develop your photos. This could be the deciding factor why you may want to choose the 907X over the Hasselblad X2D. Personally, I've enjoyed shooting with this camera and love the photos that I've gotten out of it. Again, it's one of those cameras that in terms of image quality and colors, I don't think I've ever been blown away like I have shooting with this. Being able to get amazing photos straight out of camera without even editing because the HNCS is so color accurate is awesome. And the feeling of shooting with something different, something a lot more intentional, is even greater. And although this camera doesn't come with a viewfinder and there's no IBIS, this was actually a decision I made intentionally over getting the X2D just because I liked the form factor. I knew this was going to inspire me more than a camera that looks the same as everything else. My only real gripe with these cameras is that they don't shoot video. I know these are photography focused cameras and that's great, but as someone who shoots both photo and video, it just means that I'll always have to carry around two bodies. That's nothing new to me, but yeah. 4 months in, this camera is not just a tool, it's something that inspires me to keep shooting. So I'll keep bringing it on every shoot, not because it's perfect or it's a great camera, but because it brings something out of me no other cameras do. Let me know if there's something you guys want to know about the 907X. And if you guys enjoyed this video, make sure to drop a like and subscribe if you want to see more. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.